welcome to those of you here in the room, those of you who are joining us online, and those of you who will catch us later. We are so glad that you're all here this morning. So this is our Sunday morning adult education, New Thought and World Religion class. I am Amy Burnett, and today we are going to be discussing the book Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear by Elizabeth Gilbert. So we'll go ahead and start out with an opening prayer. We come together with open minds and open hearts. We acknowledge our connection to divine creation and therefore our birthright as creators. We welcome inspiration into our daily lives and lovingly partner with it. And so it is. Amen. So Elizabeth Gilbert is the author who's most famously known for the novel Eat, Pray, Love, which was then turned into a movie and all of that. And so this book is about really stepping into creative living and however that looks for you. And so there's parts of the book where she does go into, like, if you were a budding author or whatever, you know, those kind of stories that would maybe help along that path. But really, when she talks about creative living, she says, please understand that I'm not necessarily talking about pursuing a life that is professionally or exclusively devoted to the arts. I'm speaking more broadly. I'm talking about a life that is more strongly driven by curiosity than fear. And as I was reading this, there was just so many parts. I just really liked how it tied in with a unity way of thinking and you know, just encouraging and empowering us all to be creative in our own ways and whatever that looks like for us, and to stay curious about life and what we want to create. So she starts out, she tells a story about her friend Susan, and Susan had competed as a figure skater in her early life. She had been training and competing. And she said she gave that up when it became obvious in her adolescence that she wasn't really at the level that she could be a champion. So like she had to make that hard decision that was it worth, you know, her parents putting more money in and the training schedule and all of that, if she wasn't really on that path. And so she just gave up skating altogether when that happened. And when she hit her 40th birthday, she was doing some soul searching, as one does when you start hitting those milestone birthdays. And she said she was just feeling restless, drab, and heavy. And she was really trying to think about the times in her life when she had felt light or joyous or creative and happy in her own skin. And when she thought about that, she remembered how she felt when she was skating. And she said that was like the most free she ever felt when she was first skating, not when it got into the stress of competition and are you going to be the best and all of that, but when she was just skating because she loved it. That was the most freeing thing she had ever felt. And so she decided to buy some skates and go see if she could still get that feeling. And so what she did is she bought some skates, she hired a coach, and she started skating several mornings a week. And Elizabeth says, you know, they had this conversation and she said, I really had to shut off the voice in my head that said, this is a crazy thing to do. You're a middle-aged woman. What are you doing going back and getting back on the ice? You're going to look ridiculous with all those young kids that are just starting out in their training, or those kids that are on the track to be professional skaters. But she decided to do it anyway. And what she realized when she was skating is that it did make her feel alive again. And she found that she reached a level of transcendence when she was just out on the ice, having fun, spinning and twirling and doing her jumps and letting her mind be in that creative space. And it really made her feel happy and free. And so, you know, Elizabeth talks about she didn't quit her job and decide to try pursuing professional skating in her 40s. She didn't decide to devote her entire life to skating, but she built in a few days a week where she goes to the ice, and that's her time to do that. And it's made a huge difference in her overall happiness level and how joyous she feels, and that it's amplified creativity in other parts of her life by having those moments where she just zones in to that feeling. And so Elizabeth says a creative life is an amplified life, a bigger life, an expanded life. Living in this manner, continually and stubbornly bringing forth the jewels that are hidden within you is fine art, because creative living is where big magic will always abide. And so she goes on to say, if you already have all the courage you need to bring forth the jewels that are hiding within inside you, terrific. You probably don't need to be here today, or you don't need to read her book. But most of us find ourselves not doing the really interesting things in our life, for usually held back by fear. And so we do maybe need to have a little moment to empower ourselves and remind ourselves who we really are. So she says creative living is a path for the brave. And when courage dies, creativity dies with it. And sometimes we just don't know what to do about it. So there's funny, she's got this whole giant list, and I just picked out a few of them. And she said, so here's some of the many fears that might keep you from doing the creative things in your life or living your life more freely. She says, you're afraid you have no talent. You're afraid you might be rejected. You're afraid there's no market for your brand of creativity, what you love to do. You're afraid someone else is already doing it better, can do it better, or will do it better. You're afraid that your dreams, your passion, or what you find the most joy in creatively is embarrassing for either for your age or for your gender or for your social circle or whatever, that people just wouldn't get it. They wouldn't understand it. You're afraid that you don't have the right kind of training or discipline. Who would ever take you seriously because you don't have a degree in whatever, or you haven't apprenticed with, a master or whatever. You're afraid of what your peers, your coworkers, your family members will say if you express your truth about what you'd love to be doing. You're afraid that you're too old. You're afraid that you're too young. And then she funnily throws in there, she's like, you're afraid you're too fat. And she goes, I don't know what fat has to do with anything creative, but especially for women, it always comes up in the conversation that we're not thin enough or whatever to make that dream happen. And that you're afraid you've neglected your creativity for so long, you don't even know how to find it and you can never get it back again. She talks about in her younger years that she was a person just riddled with fear. She was that child that didn't want to take risks, and everything was scary. And she says, luckily for her, she had a mother who wasn't having it. So she said, if they were at the ocean and she was sitting there saying, oh no, I can't go in the ocean, the waves are too big, her mom would grab her up and they would go get in the ocean. Or, I can't ride my bike without training wheels, it's too scary. Her mom would plop her on that bike. And she just said her mother was always pushing those boundaries of fear. And but she really held on to the kind of this identity that she was this cautious, fearful person, and that's how she lived her life. And she said that at some point, what brought her out of her fear of thinking was realizing how really and truly boring it was. That she said fear has no variety, depth, substance, or texture. It never changes, it never delights, it never surprises you. There's never a plot twist at the end when you're living from a place of fear. She said it's a song with only one note or one word, and that word is stop. And she goes on to say that those fears, while we each have our own, a little bit of our own spin on fear, like the overriding thing, the fear is just that one word, stop. Stop doing what you're doing, don't go too far, don't do this, don't do that. And she's like, so it crushes out your uniqueness, because that fear is universal. That just makes you another person living from fear, and that fear is all the same to keep you small. And so she said it had always led to predictably boring decisions. And she started thinking in her late adolescence, early 20s, like, is this really what I want to build my entire identity upon? Is this really at the end of my life? Do I want people looking and going, oh yes, Elizabeth, she was always afraid. She was always afraid of everything. Or she never did anything too bold, too risky, too exciting, because she played it small and let that fear take on or take over everything. And so she really started trying to live from a place of bravery. And she advocates bravery over fearlessness. She said, we hear a lot today about, well, you've got to be fearless. And she says, bravery equals doing something scary. Like, it's kind of scary, but you do it anyway. That's bravery. And she said fearlessness is not even understanding what the word scary means. And for her, she thinks that fearlessness is not where we should be living from all the time, because some level of fear is necessary for our basic survival. Like, you have to at least recognize when, essentially something may kill you. Like, if you go too far, it's dangerous for your survival. And so she said, without a little bit of fear, we would live crazy short lives, because we might walk into traffic, we might wander into the woods and get lost or eaten by a wild animal, we might jump into deep water not knowing how to swim, those things. So she's like, it's not that you have so much fear that you don't do them, but you have enough fear that you go, oh, perhaps I should learn how to swim. Then I can jump into the deep water and not drown. And that's the bravery of figuring out, okay, how can I do it anyway? How do I do the scary thing, but also protect my own survival? And she says what we don't need is a fear that fights for our limitations. And that really resonated with our Unity way of thinking, that we don't want to be identifying with those limitations and fighting for those limitations so hard that we keep ourselves small, or we don't make the connection with divine, or do the thing that would excite us. And so then she talks about, the title of the book, Big Magic. So what she considers to be big magic is the endless supply of ideas swimming in the pool of the divine, just waiting for a human being to make them manifest. And if that doesn't sound like Unity, I don't know what does. So she says these ideas are looking for an available and willing human partner. They'll try to get your attention, and if they find you open and relaxed enough to receive it, they'll start doing their work through you. And so it's this really beautiful idea that, divine mind is out there, and there's all these ideas and things that are wanting to be created and manifested, but they need a human partner to do that. That's kind of our gig here on this plane, right? Is that if we are truly connected with the divine, then those ideas and those things can flow through us. And so she talks about that, we're often visited by these ideas, and sometimes we only give them fleeting attention. So you may have that moment where you have a big idea, and you go, and you let the fear take, oh, well, I couldn't do that, I don't have the resources, or I'm too old, or I'm this, or I'm that. And she said her thing is that she feels like these ideas, like, they'll come to visit us, and they'll try to get our attention, but if we just shut them down, then they go off and they try to find someone else who will listen, or who's ready for that idea. And that doesn't mean that no idea will ever come to you again. It just means that wasn't your idea in the moment. That wasn't the thing that you were ready to open and receive and allow to flow through you. She also says it could come back to you later. Maybe it visits you and says, oh, okay, she's not ready, he's not ready right now. I'll have to go away for a time and then come back and see if I can catch them when they're open and receptive later on. And one of her stories that she tells that kind of brought her to even more fully to this way of thinking is that she had an idea for a novel. And she has, her husband now is from Argentina, I believe, Brazil, Argentina. And so he was telling her about a situation there where they were going to build this big highway project, and there was all kinds of corruption and things that were going on with that at the time. And then there was some poor planning. It was interesting, like they were going to cut a path through the Amazon forest, and so they went out and they got started on it, but they had miscalculated the rainy season, so all of the equipment was still out there when the rain came. And she said he tells that, you know, once the rainy season hit, like no one could get there because the rains are so heavy, and that once the rainy season was done and they went back to the construction site, the forest had just taken over the construction site again. Like everything had grown back, everything they had cleared out, it looked like they had never been there. And not only that, but some of the equipment was just gone. It had vanished, and they said no one stole it. It was like sucked down into the mud and carried away into parts of the forest that they couldn't find it. And so there's just all this miscalculation. Anyway, she got really intrigued by this story, and in her mind, she started to build a novel around some of these, you know, she's like, it was a story of corruption and this and that, and also a love story. And so she had this whole novel idea building in her mind. And she actually started to write it down, like write down the outline of it and have these ideas. And she, you know, she said it just came to her as kind of this fully formed novel, and she was trying to get it down. Well, in the middle of writing that, she had some life upheaval that happened, and she got sidetracked from the idea. And so it was, even though she had started writing, she had gotten not very far in it, you know. And she said she got sidetracked from it for about a year and a half. And then when she came back to it and she was trying to write, it's like it wasn't there anymore. It wasn't coming as easily. She couldn't remember some of the details that she had originally planned. And so she kind of set it to the side. And she didn't really she hadn't talked about it publicly or to really anyone other than her husband. Well, then she went to, maybe, I don't know what you would call it. She met with there was another writer having maybe a reading or some kind of event. And this was another female writer that she just loved her writing. And so she went. They had never met in person before, but they met at this event, and they just instantly hit it off, to the point that they continued to keep in touch. They decided to write letters to each other, and so they became friends. Well, like another year goes by, and they actually meet in person to have lunch somewhere, because they lived like at opposite ends of the country. And so they were in the same place, same town at the same time, and so they decide to have lunch. And this author that she loves says, I'm in the middle of a new project, so excited about it. I'm having to do a lot of research. And she said, and it's about the Amazon. And Elizabeth says, oh my gosh, I had an Amazon novel that I was gonna write. And she says, okay, well, you tell me what yours was about first. You started yours first, so you tell me what yours is about. And Elizabeth tells the basic outline of her novel, and she said the other author sits there in stunned silence and says, my novel is also about this, this, and this. There was just like a slight difference in what hers, but it was like the same heroine, some of the same basic premise. And so what Elizabeth says, she's like, I really and truly believe that first time we met in person, like that idea transferred. Like I was not ready. I was resisting that idea, wasn't giving it the attention, had let other things take my mind off of it. It wasn't coming easily. And she's like, I think that idea found a receptive party, and it became born in her. And so now, like that other author refers to that as their novel. She'll say, oh, our novel is doing very well, because they feel like there was some shared space because they hadn't talked about it at all. They had the ideas separately. And so Elizabeth really talks about, like, she thinks that's the explanation for how two people from different parts of the world can have similar ideas at the same time, because that idea is out there in divine mind trying to be born, and like maybe more than one person kind of catches a piece of it. And she talks about several things within history, especially like science and math, where people were working on the same ideas at the same time, and like, yeah, like somebody got it done first, but then someone else was going, I was in the middle of that. I was almost there. I almost had it. And she said, I could have had all of these negative thoughts like, she stole my novel. She must have read my notes. Somebody told her that I was working on that. And she's like, but I prefer to think of it as big magic. Like, this is the big magic. And she said, so I can just think, I'm so glad that novel is coming into the world, that idea found its human partner and it came into the world. And I just thought that was a really beautiful idea, that when we see things like that, it's not that we have to be angry that, I didn't get there first or whatever. It's just like, oh wow, I'm so lucky that idea was trying to come through me at the same time, and maybe there's still more for me to do within there. She also talks about another project idea that she had, and she said, she had like this basic idea, like, someone needs to do this story. Someone needs to do something with this story. But it was on a list of projects to get to someday. And she said then she sees that like HBO was coming out with a documentary, and it was that story. And she said, I could just have this moment of relief and go, it found another way. Like, it found another way to come through. I could scratch that one off the list. I don't have to write that book because someone did it in documentary form, and I can move on to the next idea. And I just thought it was a really nice way to think about creative projects and to move through that.
And she could take a little credit for it too, because she helped pump the idea.
Yes, like she held space for the idea, and energy for the idea. Absolutely, yeah, that's beautiful.
Can I take credit for Amazon then?
Sure.
Yeah, we don't mind.
Thanks. Yeah. And that's what she said. How many times have you been sitting somewhere and you see something and you go, I had that idea 2 years ago, but I didn't do anything with it. But if I had, oh my gosh, I could be Jeff Bezos right now, or I could have written that book, I could have done that documentary. And so that's where she says, like, if you are in partnership with those ideas, like, then our human part is to like take action and actually, start doing things that get us closer to that end result. So that was kind of what I was going to ask, is has anyone here ever felt that partnership, that divine idea speaking so loudly that you couldn't ignore it, and you were open to it, and you just knew that had to be born through you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gigglebox.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You want to comment more?
Yeah. Well, the Gigglebox project was like that for me. I was on another course, a different seminar, and I was looking for this one person, and I walked over to where they were in this group of people, and they started talking about that there's such a thing as a certified laughter leader. And I went, what? I gotta know more about this. So I looked it up and became one, and there was required reading. There were 3 books that were required reading to become a certified laughter leader. How ridiculous is that? But then the people in those books and their books and the whole program inspired Giggleboxes. And every step along the way, new stuff occurred easily and effortlessly, including finding the bus, and within 2 weeks it's been painted here at Unity Church, by the congregants painting it. So it was just like boom, 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 boom for a long time, until my brain got in the way and things got screwed up. But other than that.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's kind of also within Unity, you know, it's that idea that when we take action, the universe says, ooh, we're going to support this action, and starts bringing things into our life that make it easy, that make it more effortless, or that point us kind of like the little trail markers where it's like, oh no, turn here. This is where the path goes from now on. And so she says, remember that we don't need permission to be creative, to follow those ideas. We have it within us all the time. And she wants everyone to know that even if you didn't receive that message growing up, that it's in the makeup of who we are. And it's where you come from. It's where we all came from. And so she talks about the evidence that she said in her research, the earliest recognizable human art is 40,000 years old. So something created just for the sake of art, just to embellish something, make something look pretty, have a useful item that was also beautiful, like 40,000 years old. And that the earliest evidence of agriculture is only 10,000 years old. And so she said, in our collective history, we as humans have spent more time creating art and preserving it than we have done in learning how to systematically and regularly feed ourselves. So, not that food wasn't available, we obviously survived, but to actually, like the agriculture, to set up a farm, to intentionally plant seeds and do something, the earliest evidence of that they find is 10,000 years, where communities were doing that instead of just roaming around to what was available at the time. And so she says, let inspiration lead you where it wants to. Make things just because you want to make them. Make what you like, what brings you joy. You are an inherently creative in your own special way. And divine ideas, or whatever you want to call them, will choose to manifest through you in whatever way you're open to receiving it. So she says, declare your intent and claim your creative passion. So whatever that is for you, she says, say, I am a writer, I am a singer, I am a gardener, I am a dancer, I'm a photographer, I'm a chef, like whatever that creative energy looks like for you. And she's like, and you can also say, I am this, and I'm that, and I'm the other thing too. You don't have to focus in on one thing and declare, I am only that. You can be multiple things. You can move from one to the other. She's like, and it's also fine to say, I don't know exactly what I am yet, but I'm really curious and I'm on a path to find out. And so then maybe you're just trying different things as the mood strikes, and you might find something that just really does it for you, really sparks your joy, and then you can just do more of that. And she also says, speak it and let the ideas waiting to be manifest through a human partner know that you're out there. They have to know you're ready. They have to know. The same thing, if you're saying, I am a photographer, then as you declare that and you're taking pictures, like things will come into your path that strengthen that, or you'll find beautiful places to photograph, or maybe you'll find a class that teaches you a technique that you didn't know. Maybe somebody will notice your photographs, but it's not even about that. It's really just about fostering that creative spirit within you. And that what I liked about how she talked about it is it really is, just as we talk about meditating or, sitting in prayer or doing all of those things that like bring you to center and bring a connection with divine mind, that she talks about that in the sense of creative projects, that you're really communing with something outside of yourself when you're doing those creative projects and bringing something to life. And I thought that was really, really nice. And she said, just about the time that you really like declare it and start going down that path, you will probably, most of us have that dark inner voice that's going to say something like, who in the world do you think you are to claim such a thing? Or all those fears are going to start, you're too old to do this, whatever. Yes?
We went through,
It's on.
it was, oh, okay. We went through a workshop and she changed the inflection of who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? And it changed that whole scenario for me because it just, we have heard it so much in the derogatory way.
Oh, yeah.
But when you hear it, who do you think you are? You know, it just changes the whole thing, and it frees you up to be. And it just changed my world.
Right. Because what we know, right, is whoever we think we are is who we are. We have that power to create. We have the power to, claim something for ourselves or have an idea about how we want to show up in the world, and we can do that. We can be that. So yeah, that's great. I loved her response. Her response that she says, "This is what I've said to that voice." She said, "It's funny you should ask. I'll tell you who I am. I am a child of God, just like anyone else. I am a constituent of this universe. I have invisible spirit benefactors who believe in me and who labor alongside me. The fact that I am here is all the evidence that I need to know that have a right to be here. I have a right to own my own voice and a right to my own vision. I have a right to collaborate with creativity because I myself am a product and a consequence of creation. I'm on a mission of artistic liberation, so let me get to it." I know, it's like, woo, that's a powerful claiming right there. So she gives us a few other reminders about creativity. She's like, you're not required to save the world with your creativity. It shouldn't be about that. She said true authenticity in whatever creative endeavor you pursue will always come from doing the thing that sparks joy in you and brings you fulfillment or speaks to your soul in some way, that idea that is supposed to be born through you. And she said if it helps someone else as a byproduct, then great, terrific, like that's amazing. But at the end of the day, do what you like to do because you like doing it. And so she talked about, people that even in her realm of like writing books, and she said, she'll talk to an author and they'll say, "Oh, I'm writing this book and it's going to help so many people." And she always says, "Well, that's great. I hope it does. How is it helping you as you're writing it? Like, what are you getting out of it as you're writing it?" And she talks about, even like the wild success of Eat, Pray, Love. She's like, I didn't write that book for anybody but myself. Like, I was having these travels, I was having these life experiences, and she said I needed to make sense of that all for myself in my own mind and to process through it. And she said, and I'm a writer, so that's what I did, is I wrote it all down. And she said I had no idea that it was going to become the success that it was, which she kind of says, it's debatable. She's like, some people love that work and some people hate it. And she's like, I've gotten all kinds of feedback. And she said, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks because I wrote it for myself to process through. And it just so happened to get picked up and something big come of it. And she said, even as she was writing it, that's what she was writing it from, that intention. And she talked about her now husband in there. She was asking him if she could use some part of his story. And he said, well, like, what's the risk here? Like, what is the consequence of me allowing you to put it in? And she said, my response was, it's probably pretty low because I don't know that anyone will ever really read it other than me and you. And he said, okay, sure, fine, then put it in there. And she said, who knew it was going to become?
So who was it in the story? Who was he?
It's her now husband. So at the time, it was her fiance.
It was her lover. Dolly.
Yes. So
he was her lover in Dallas.
So she said, just funny. She was like, the risk is pretty low. Nobody's ever going to read it. And then she goes, and of course, and then that's the one book that everyone was like, oh my gosh, it's on the New York Times bestseller. And she said, I had no, she said, I wasn't writing it from the place that like, oh, this is going to be my great work, or this is the one that's going to land on the bestseller list. So she's like, just do what you're doing because it means something to you and it brings you joy. She also talks about a story, I believe it was when she was in Bali, and there was a man, and she said that his one possession, like his main possession that he had, was this ox, and it was a very large ox. It was a beautiful ox, and that was like his entire wealth was this ox. And she said to like make it more beautiful or adorn it or whatever reason, she said he painted one horn turquoise and one horn pink. And then he had found some little pieces of tin or something that he crafted into some little like chimes that would, like when they would hit together, they would make noise. And so he glued those on to the horns as well. And she said, so as this ox would walk around, you would hear this little tinkling, and you would look over and you would see the horns, and she's like, and people would smile, and he was so proud to show this ox off. And she's like, that was his little creative expression of showing how grateful he was for that wealth that he had, and to like adorn it in a way that showed how special it was to him. And she's like, you know, you can say all you want about how meaningful was it to paint an ox's horns and to decorate them with little tinkling bells. And she's like, but I can tell you, it's the only animal I fully remember from my trip in Bali. She's like, I will never forget that ox. And the man's face, how proud he was and how excited he was to show off his ox and to decorate it. And so she's like, that was his little creative expression that brought him joy. He did it for himself, but then he got the joy from others, also, you know, smiling and asking him about it, and it created that energy for him. She also says, you know, you don't have to quit your day job and completely immerse yourself in creative expression. Like some people, that's what they feel called to do, but it can just mean that you carve out time to get quiet, let those creative ideas find you, the ones that light you up. You could be the only person that sees your creation, or it may be the thing that sells for thousands of dollars. Again, either way, as long as you had joy in doing it and you felt that communion with divine while you were doing it, and it brought peace and joy and love and all of those things to you, then that's what's important at the end of the day. She also talks about forgetting perfectionism. And I love this. She says that she sees perfectionism as fear in fancy shoes and a mink coat pretending to be elegant when it's actually just terrified. And so she says, you know, throw away the perfectionism. Underneath it, it's really just a voice saying, I'm not good enough, I won't be good enough, what I'm doing isn't good enough. And so she says, you know, don't let yourself fall prey to perfectionism. Don't allow that voice to stop you from getting started or keep you from sharing your creative endeavors with others. And she said, you know, really, the reality is, even when we've worked on something and we've stressed over it and we go, okay, it's perfect. It is finally perfect. I can share it with someone else. I can release it into the world. That there will be someone somewhere that finds a flaw in it, or sees something that they would have done differently. So it's just like perfectionism, it's really just an illusion. There is no such thing. You can feel like it's perfect from your view, but it will always be imperfect from someone else's view, and that's just okay. She's like, we just have to learn to be okay with that. And so instead, she wants us to feel empowered to create joyfully and then release it as is and move on to the next idea with an open heart. And so something that her mother used to say to her is, done is better than good. And what that meant was finish the project. Like, done, a bunch of projects laying around unfinished because you can't make them perfect, then they're just doing nothing. They're just sitting around, and
they are taking your energy.
Yes, and they're causing you stress. She also talks about an author that was doing a talk, and another author came and was like, oh, it was like lamenting, you know, oh, I've done so much work and I write every day and nobody's picking up my books and I keep getting rejection letters and I'm feeling really, you know, discouraged by this. And she said this author said, the more prominent author said, and the guy said, everyone just keeps telling me to persevere and I just feel like I'm persevering and like nothing is happening. And this author said, well, I won't tell you to persevere, I'll tell you to quit. And she said, everybody in the room was like, did he just tell him to quit writing? And he said, I tell you to quit writing because it sounds like it's painful for you. Like it shouldn't, if it's your creative endeavor, it should be bringing you joy, you should be excited about what you're doing, and it sounds like it's making you absolutely miserable. So I would quit. and then he said, however, if once you quit for a while, you feel that push that like you can't live your life without doing this thing, and there's more work there for you to do, then I would tell you to persevere. And so he was kind of just saying, like, if something isn't bringing you joy, and that's what happens with these projects that aren't done, right? Like, we start something and we can't get it perfect, and it's sitting there and it's not done, and then we walk by it, and every time we walk by it, we go, oh gosh, still don't have that done. Or what, we have some kind of inner monologue about that it's a failure, that it's never going to be right, that's whatever. And she says, those things, like, just get it done and release it and go on to the next thing, because maybe that's not your big project to release into the world. So done is better than good. And so she's always taken that to mean like a good enough finished novel is better than a perfect novel meticulously written and never seen by anyone. And so, because again, that perfectionism, that perfect is an illusion. It's never going to be perfect. So sometimes you just got to finish it and move on and release it as is, and just know that that's how that one was supposed. That's how that project or that thing or whatever it is was supposed to be done through you. And then she also says, stay curious. So curiosity is accessible to everyone, and she tells people to stay curious or to follow their curiosity instead of following their passion, because she feels like when we say, oh, you got to find your passion, like that feels intimidating to people. It feels like it should be this big feeling. And so we start to doubt, like, oh, is this my passion? Is this passion that I'm feeling? And so she's like, people get tripped up in that find your passion, follow your passion kind of thinking. And so she really says, let's just stay curious instead. Curiosity is accessible to everyone. Everyone can have a curious thought. They can follow their curiosity with an idea. And she said, curiosity only asks, what are you interested in? What do you want to know more about? And you can start, following that path. And she said, if you follow where your curiosity leads, it often charts a path to amazing and unexpected places. And so I love that idea too. Just thinking, if you're doing something creative, and you think, oh, I wonder what would happen if I did it like this. What would that look like? Or maybe I should talk to this person and see what they, whatever. You just keep going with those questions, and before you know it, you've gone from here to here in little steps along the way. And she's like, that doesn't feel so intimidating to people to say, just stay curious. So that was a highly condensed version of what this book I always have to try to, it starts out really big, and then I have to try to bring it back down to something that will fit in our time. And so I had this meditation if we had time, and it feels like we do have time. So we're going to end today with a little guided meditation. So if everyone wants to get comfortable, take a deep breath in. Let yourself get centered. If you're comfortable in closing your eyes, do so. Otherwise, you can just let your gaze gently fall toward the floor. Just focus on a single area in front of you. Deep breath in. Exhale. Think of your favorite color. It's okay if your favorite color changes. Just think of your favorite color in this now moment. Start to see that color in your mind's eye. Breathe in this color. Let your mind and body fill with that color. Visualize what you'll do with this color. What will you create? In your mind's eye, start painting broad strokes with this color. Start to paint your ideal day, creating your own reality as if you have all the time, money, and resources that you could need. Start to add other colors and invite a new sense of smell or touch. Let all your senses be vivid and activated. Visualize your ideal way to wake up in the morning and let it make you happy. Do you cuddle with a loved one? Do you check in with your pets? Do you allow the kids to jump in bed with you? Do you have a favorite morning drink that you enjoy? Do you seek out warm hugs from the people you love? Or maybe you sit outside with the warm sun on your skin. What do you do next? Let yourself be free. Maybe you go to a waterfall and play in the water. Maybe you're walking through a forest in the deep woods with greenery all around you. Allow yourself to get lost, enjoying the sights, the smells, and the sense of freedom all around you. Let this feeling of satisfaction flow through every cell of your body. Slowly finish your day and visualize yourself coming home. Gaze at the sunset after a fulfilling day and feel a sense of gratitude in your body from head to toe. What would you like to do for the end of your day? Are you reading a book? Are you watching your favorite movie? Going out to dinner with friends? Dancing the night away? Maybe you see your favorite people and they all greet you with a warm hug. Find yourself at home and take a nice warm shower, or maybe get a massage, completely relaxing every muscle in your body. As you climb into bed, feel a wave of gratitude, knowing that you have the power to create this day. Feel satisfied and fulfilled as you drift off to sleep. As you create this beautiful day for yourself, rest in the knowing that you have the power to create anything you set your mind to. Begin to fill it in with color, with life, with love. And when you're ready, come back to this now moment. Open your eyes. All right. I hope that was nice for everyone. And I hope that everyone feels empowered to pick up something creative today, whatever that looks like. Paint a rock, paint your fence, take a picture, write a song, sing a song, do whatever it is that sparks joy in you today, and make yourself an open pathway for those ideas to come and flow through you from Divine Mind. That's what I have today. Paul, do you have our announcements?
Would you like to read them? Or
I will, if yeah.
Sure.
Either way. Okay. So we do have a board meeting tomorrow, September 19th. Guests are always welcome. About 6:30 is when we can welcome guests in. And we do encourage anyone who wants to know more about what's going on, come to the board meeting. We're happy to have you. September 20th, and for several weeks after, the book club, which meets on Tuesdays at 10 a.m., will be discussing Don Miguel Ruiz's 4 Agreements. Great one. So if you're available on Tuesday mornings, that would be a good thing to join. September 23rd, there will be a celebration of life for Tina McManus at 4:30. And next Sunday, the New Thought and World Religion class at September 25th will be Teresa Amezcua, and she is speaking on The Science of Self-Empowerment, Awakening the New Human Story by Greg Braden. On Monday, the 26th, it is Unity in the Community time again. So we are sponsoring a blood drive at the Community Blood Center of the Ozarks. And we're really encouraging everyone to schedule a blood donation if you're able. There's details in the foyer, but just make sure that they know Unity sent you their way. And I saw on the flyer they're doing, until supplies run out, it's 2 free passes to the Dickerson Zoo and a t-shirt, is that right, for everybody who donates until they run out. So that's another bonus. And our trip to Unity Village is in the planning stages. The date is now looking like Tuesday, October 18th. So we had said the 6th, probably saved the date before. Now it's more firmly Tuesday the 18th is when they can welcome us. They're going to confirm those details tomorrow with Unity Village, and then we'll have a very firm date and plan. We have decals for car windows that have arrived. They're on sale in the foyer for $5. And starting October 2nd, Sue is going to be doing her series on Reverend Eric Butterworth's book, Discover the Power Within You. And we're looking to sign up participants for the 3 groups that we have leaders for. Those groups are going to be limited to about 6 people. So if there's other people who would like to be group leaders, please step forward now, and then we'll get people signed up. And that's going to be, everyone is going to be working on that material together. So the youth is going to be doing it, we're going to be doing it here, and then having small groups. And I know Sue's excited, and when Sue gets excited about something, it's a good time for everyone. It will be amazing. And then on October 2nd, after the monthly potluck, there will be an orientation for anyone who wants to help out with crisis cold weather shelters. There's so many ways to volunteer, so please come to that meeting if you have an interest. All right, thank you for being here.